You're trying to onboard clients, you're trying to deliver the work, get back to people, you're stressed. So you left your corporate job because you didn't want to be stressed anymore, and now you're stressed, and you've got nobody to bail you out the shit.
Maybe a lot of people are like, well, I don't want my customer to kind of see that we're developing this as we go, for example, especially like for newer businesses.
Feedback's a gift, right? You've got to make sure that you're constantly communicating with your client. I always say to the people that work in my team, if a customer has to come to us and ask a question, we haven't done our jobs properly. How can you ever onboard staff when you're really busy if you haven't got a simple process in place?
There is so much upside in having a good guest experience, right? That guest journey.
Building rapport isn't just important for those things, it's important for the conversation that you're having on the podcast. If you want to have a conversation that flows and that's interesting, then you need the person that you're talking to be comfortable.
Yep.
And that's done by building rapport, and that's part of your customer journey.
Yeah.
You guys did a good job, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Hey, I'm Luis.
And this is Luis.
And welcome to the Content is Profit podcast.
In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content while having a great time.
The goal of this podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. And my brother said you're gonna have a good time, but you might have
great time.
You might have not believed it in
it.
his voice, but he truly means it. He actually likes to have fun here on the show.
Are you angry today? Why you keep throwing me under the bus? My goodness, I even brought you a great business idea this morning, but enough. We'll talk about that later. Guys, today this person, her superpower is getting shit done.
Getting shizzle done.
Getting shizzle done. The shizzle gets sizzles.
No, I'm kidding. You can use profanity here. It's totally okay.
The shizzle gets sizzles.
Yeah, absolutely. She's led a team to consistently deliver millions of pounds, and that is a clue where she's from. Worth of customer orders annually with very little staff or overheads, and that's actually some of the stuff that we're gonna dive into today with the one and only, the automation queen, Natalie Skinner. Ooh, ooh, ooh. What's up, Natalie?
Fonzie, you're not good at improvising intros, man. I had everything ready, and you threw it under the bus.
I think that has to be the best intro I've ever had.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. I love that. I love the contrast between those two opinions. You're not good, and then you're like, but that's the best I've heard. It is what it is.
Lesson for the consumers or the listeners, right? Perspective. It's okay. Sometimes you may think that is not the best thing, but somebody outside might do, and it's good. Put it out there anyways.
Or build rapport with your guests, right? They're from England. Bring your England jersey out here. I love it. Natalie, how are you doing today? We're excited to have you on Content's Profit.
Yeah, I'm great, guys. I'm a lot better now I've heard that introduction. Yeah.
I hope it's better than the TB and chips that you were eating, right?
It definitely was, yeah. I don't think anybody's ever built me up quite so much, so we'll see.
Natalie, the queen of automations and customer journeys, right? I'm so excited to kind of dive into that. As content creators or business owners, sometimes that might be one of the things that are in the back, right? A lot of people think, the content's what makes it. And then all of a sudden when it starts to work, then they discover there's this whole thing on the other end that is whoa, hidden revenue, or wait.
Wow, now I got customers?
Now I have customers. What do we do now, right? So I'm excited to dive into that. What are, maybe some of the bigger problems that you see in the industry and that, you help solve, for example, in that specific area?
It's a big question because they're quite varied depending on, so I cover most areas of business. So I work with the solopreneur, the entrepreneur, but I also work with the medium-sized business and the larger corporations.
Yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, when you break it down, the problems are all really the same. But the way in which people view them is quite often different. So
yeah,
I guess if we start with the solo entrepreneur, then you've pretty much just touched on it there, really. We spend all our time, don't we, when we start in a business just wanting to get the leads in. And then all of a sudden you get the leads in and you've grown quicker than you thought you was going to grow, and now you're trying to do all of the things. You haven't got any processes in place. You're trying to onboard clients, you're trying to deliver the work, get back to people. You're spinning all these places, you're stressed. So you left your corporate job because you didn't want to be stressed anymore, and now you're stressed. And you've got nobody to bail you out the shit. And you've got no systems in place.
Yeah.
And that's the the biggest frustration for me, I think, is there's quite a lot of coaches and people out there now in the coaching world that, you know, that are talking about business not having to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, they're right, you do just have to take action. But processes and all those fundamental pieces of business haven't gone away. It's how small businesses become really big businesses. And so for me, like, just getting that message out there is still really important. I think, like, you need to have processes and things in place. How can you ever onboard staff when you're really busy if you haven't got a simple process in place? Like, so that is one of the biggest problems that I see. And then the other is, you know, everybody always wants the fanciest tools, you know, the biggest thing that does the most things, that costs the most money. And before you know it, you've got 10 subscriptions to 10 different platforms, and you're only half using all of them. Like, just stop. Like, stop.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to dive in very specific parts of this conversation, right? Like, potentially, you know, talk about creating systems for content creation on the back end, customer journey, obviously. What comes to mind is it is way better and probably easier to keep a client that rather than going and chasing, you know, always trying to get new clients. And you have more experience in this based on Orange Theory when you were working in the fitness industry, right? Which you guys had churn and you guys were like consistently chasing leads and all these people. So what are maybe some foundational things that people need to know when it comes to customer service, right? Let's say they've been creating content. Customer journey. My apologies. So what are some of those foundational things, right, that they need to understand to increase the lifetime value of a customer? Because, you know, again, they're putting their energy into the marketing side of things. They're bringing people into their world, but then they're not staying longer, right? They're not staying long with them. And you know, go into that cycle of feast and famine, right? It's very, very challenging emotionally, obviously, on the business. So what are some foundational things that people can start saying, all right, I need to start paying attention to this, and these ones are going to increase that, you know, lifetime value of my customer and improve my customer journey?
Okay. So the first place that I always start with people's customer journey is with the business owner and whoever's running the business. So when I have a consultation with somebody, my first question is always, let's start with why. Like, if you close your eyes and tell me about the moment that you created your business in your mind and what you dreamt it looked like, and then I get them to write that down. Because quite often there's a reason we all started our businesses, right? It's usually to help somebody or to create something. And in your mind, when you first start with it, it's the best thing. And your customers are giving you 5-star reviews and you're in these magazines and you know, it's out of this world crazy, some of the stuff that people dream up in their head. And then the reality of running a business is very different. And you get to a place where you're busy and, like I said, you can't do all of the things. And so naturally, start to compromise on certain things. So we always start there with my clients so that I can understand what it is that they were trying to achieve in their businesses, with the best version of their businesses, if you like. And then the second thing that I do with business owners is then we go back through the back end of their business and review their business processes, because when the back end of your business is a mess, then your customer journey is a mess. Because when you know, if you come off, if I hadn't have been sat on the sofa eating chips before we had this call, and I'd have you know, I'd had a really shitty day and I'd have brought a really shitty energy to this conversation. I wonder how many times we can get the word shitty into this podcast.
We need a counter. Bing.
Like, I'd have shown up, like, if you was one of my customers, I'd have shown up in a completely different way, you know? And in the same way that if a business owner's rushing around and they're jumping from one meeting to the next and they're not prepared, you're not giving the customer the best of you. And that shows up through everything that you do. So I tell people to review the back end of the processes, put systems in place, automate. And for me, this whole thing links back around to answer your question, so bear with me. And then once you've done that, and your business runs smoothly, and you can step back and you're less stressed and you've got the time, and you can really start looking at your business from above it rather than being in the weeds of it, then you can start saying, right, okay, so where are my customers' pain points? Where are the places that I'm really dropping a ball, where my customers are suffering?
Yeah.
And then that's then how you can start to tease out those customer pain points. And typically it's things like, you know, I went to a retreat the other week and I was doing a presentation on customer journey. And there was a lady that said to me about, she said, well, I've got mine sorted. She said, I've got every message that somebody sends me, they get a response that says I'll reply to them within 24 hours. I said, that's great. So do you reply within 24 hours? She was like, most of the time. Okay. So, you know, the other thing then with customer journeys, you have to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
As a business owner, you have to communicate, be clear, and follow through.
Yeah. I have a quick question that just arose, right? Because earlier I made the mistake of saying customer service, right, when we're talking of customer journey. But now, genuinely, I have this question on what is the difference between customer service, right? When you're giving me the example of somebody saying they're going to answer within 24 hours and customer journey. Is there a significant difference in there, right? And I think I see it in a very specific way in my mind. Obviously, you are the expert in this. I would love to hear your opinion. But I think that could, you know, help define what it actually is for the person listening so they can get a better idea on how they can implement it in their business.
Yeah, so customer service is something that you provide to your customer. The customer journey is the experience and the process that your customer goes through when they're with you.
Got it.
So one is you and one is them.
Got it.
Yeah, the way I see it is, you know, you have your lead acquisition processes, right, where you're like bringing just new customers in. It's like that's the water that gets in the bucket, right? And then inside of the bucket, you have these paths, right, that you know hopefully helps them stay in that bucket or move to maybe a different bucket, you know, a better bucket. But all of a sudden we have like these holes at the bottom, right? Like these people are like continue to drop. So to me, that customer journey like helps, you know, plug those holes at the bottom of your bucket, right? And like Fonzie said, you know, my background is in the fitness studio. We manage studios with 1,000 members, 600 members. And I remember the conversation every single week is like, how many new members are we going to get, right? And we ignored completely for a long time that we were dropping 9 to 10% of the members that we had at the time every single month, right? I was like, well, we're going to be able to get to our revenue goals a lot faster if we actually focus our attention into intentionality with the customer journey. Like, what are the coaches doing to solve the problems of the current, you know, members that we have? How can we provide a better class experience? How can we add value to the customer that it's already paying us, right? And we dropped that from 10% to about 3%. And it was incredible. Like, it felt like really good, lot less pressure, right?
Which is amazing. What did you do to achieve that, though?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few elements, right? You know, we retrained a lot of the staff. Like, we put in a lot of processes around the customer journey, like about what do we do when people walk into the door in the studio, for example? Like, what do we do when they have questions at the front desk? You know, how do we really communicate through them through text? Like, do we allow them to, you know, rebook classes through text? Are we going the extra mile? So there was like a lot of micro processes that were not there, right? We will say them all the time, but they were not documented, right? So then, you know, we had about 14 staff members, you know, half coaches, half front desk staff. But if we're not acting as a team, it will be like really, really difficult, right? So similar thing now with the studio and the content agency. The studio, when we acquired it in July, like probably no processes at all, right? So we're continuing the process. Okay, well, if this situation happens, what do we do? Definitely could do a better job, and I think it's because
100%.
we're so in it still, and it's just the studio and the agency side. I think on the agency side, it's pretty well documented. On the execution side of the process,
yeah, I think we're stuck in step 1 and 2 here on the studio, which is, you know, start with the why and the back end of the business and review the processes that we currently have. When we came in, we started seeing some processes. We put some production processes in place, but not quite also dove into our why.
Now, how important is the communication with that customer while you, let's say, develop these things, right? Or transparency, right? Because, what I see is that maybe a lot of people are like, well, I don't want my customer to kind of see that we're developing this as we go, for example, especially like for newer businesses. And I recently listened to an episode, I don't know if you're familiar with Leila Hormozi, but like she put out an episode on actually the customer journey, right? And she was talking about like, we put all this effort on the front end, but then once the customer pays, there's no communication at all, right? And it's like about like almost like flip that communication back when they're a customer and like create those points of contact or communication, whether like if the job is going to take a month to do, how are we communicating along the way to make sure that experience is positive for them, and so on. So where do you think like people fall off there, and what are some simple things that they can start doing maybe tomorrow to be like, okay, this is my first step after I figure out my why. What is the first thing that I want to go see and tackle?
Okay. So she's absolutely right. Like, just to go back to your point where you're talking about the customer journey and how it stops after the service, like feedback's a gift, right? And so you've got to make sure that you're constantly communicating with your client. I always say to the people that work in my team, if a customer has to come to us and ask a question, we haven't done our jobs properly, right? We should be ahead of that all of the time. I mean, and of course it happens every now and again, they've misplaced an email or whatever, but like for the most part, you should be ahead of those questions all of the time, even through your delivery phase. Like you should be anticipating what if you're thinking about your customer and whether you should be giving them an update, you should have already given them the update. If it's on your mind, it's been on their mind for at least a week before it's been on yours. But back to your question about what comes next after the why and the why and the other bit.
The processes.
I mean, and the process. I mean,
I was like, Jesus, what's the word?
It's Friday afternoon. We get it. We get it. We understand.
Friday evening for me. But you're lucky you caught me before the wine. But so the next thing that I always say is onboarding. So your onboarding process should be as smooth as possible. You've got to maintain excitement the whole way throughout the process for a customer, right from awareness straight through to advocacy. You have to keep your client's attention. So onboarding, quite often I see, lots of companies, particularly entrepreneurs that get off a great discovery call with somebody and they say, well, I'll send you your proposal and then we'll get started. And then it might take them 2 days to pull that proposal together because they're copying and pasting off Google Docs and they're busy doing other things. And you've lost your client in that time because they've finished with the excitement, they've got over it and they've found somebody else. So having your templates and all of those, and this is why I come back to the back end of your business all of the time, because having those things there makes your life easier and creates a smooth process for your client. So when my proposals go out, I come off the back of a call, that client's already in my system because they've already given me the details for them to be in the system. I come off the call, I click a button, an approve button, and it pings them a proposal because everything's auto-populated. Sure, based on a bespoke proposal, there might be the odd field that I have to change, but it's off, it's approved, it's gone, they've got it. They haven't had time to, they probably have time to go down to the husband and come off, hopefully, and say, I've been on this amazing call, I'm really excited about this service. And it's already there, which is the exact moment that you want to capture clients in. And off the back, attached to the back of my proposal and invoice, proposal is a contract and invoice. So they're not accepting a proposal and then waiting another day or two for me to get around to sending a contract and invoice. Again, they haven't got that time to reevaluate and change their mind. I mean, all right, okay, everybody's subject to a 14-day cooling off period. But, in terms of keeping that momentum for your customer journey going, it's there, boom, boom, boom. Very smooth. They've got everything they need. Off the back of that, they get a welcome booklet, which tells them what the next steps are. So again, 2 days after that, they'll receive a welcome gift. Not a generic welcome gift. It doesn't have to be expensive, but one that's specific to the service and their particular requirements. It keeps that level of engagement highlighted. I note down birthdays and anniversaries and, things that I can do above and beyond. You think I do customer journey and systems strategy. So
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different things within that bracket that I can send somebody that's relevant to their business to let them know that they're still front and center of my thought process, which leads back to that advocacy piece at the end when you talk about plugging the bucket.
Yeah.
And the same with the sales process. Like when you're selling somebody, you have to maintain that level of excitement. I used to work with a guy in real estate, and he, after he'd finished with his clients and, you know, they'd signed and they were in escrow. I think that's what you guys call it over there. We call it completely different. I always have to think of the translation. It's he sends them a Rolodex of all of the people that they can use then to book movers and decorators and all of the things, you know, so that it's one less thing for them to think about. And then the icing on the cake is on the day that they move in, he sends them pizza, so they don't even have to worry about dinner.
Wow,
that's cool.
That is such a good idea. We gotta start sending pizza to our podcast guests, you know. And we can actually, I would love to dive a little bit into this, hearing a little bit about the content is profit, right? The podcast customer journey, in a sense, right? Guest journey, if you want to put it that way, because I think it's very valuable. But to what you just said, it reminded me of a very early lesson in our marketing career, which was how people tend to make decisions, right? First, they evaluate the vehicle, right? Is this product right for me? If they see it and they're like, oh yeah, I think it could work for, you know, for my purposes, then they go into internally, right, the emotions, right? Like, does this feels good? Do I want to do it? And then after they make that decision, they rationally, right, they kind of like, they judge their decision, but also they have the external factors, right, which is like time, money, usually. And I see this when you were talking, I see it as well in the customer journey, right? They have the vehicle front and center, right? The product. They already invested in it. They're already into it. So they believe in it. But I feel like the job as the customer journey, as you're developing it, is to keep them on a high emotional attachment to the product, to the company, right, that they're doing. And to do that, you need a lot of intention, right? Like what you said, that example that you gave is perfect. All right, their next problem after they do this is going to have to talk to X, Y, and Z person. So let me send them a Rolodex with all those things already done. And when they're moving, they're going to have to get dinner. So I'm going to do this. You're creating those like micro experiences that each one of them is attached to a feeling, right? And it's going to feel like it's going to keep them on a high and thinking about, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And you're just building trust with all of them.
Yeah, and not only that, right? Like that service has only just finished, and so he's you know, anybody within your circle that you might hear is moving or whatever, or wants to sell their house, all of a sudden you're front and center. Oh, I know this amazing guy. He's really helpful. He's got this Rolodex that he'll send me, so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and he'll even send you pizza on the day that you move.
Yeah.
You know, like when it comes to advocacy and retention, like it's right there, and it's two very simple things that he's doing.
Yeah. I remember listening to, I think it was a story, maybe it's fake one, I don't know, but it was like this guy that had a church to marry people, and then they had a law practice to help divorce people, and then they had a funeral home. So like the whole thing was like that company was along the whole ride of like the whole family, you know, from they get married, if they get divorced, and then the funeral home after that, and they're like in this very, very long customer journey with these people, right? It was something to illustrate something like that. So, you know, I think this is something that a lot of people in the startup business overlook. Even, you know, if you want to start something, and just this morning we're talking to a friend that he lives in Bogota, Colombia. He's here visiting, and he's been working on startups. And he was like, "Well, what's next?" And he's like, "I'm done with the startup. It was a mess. There's no processes. I am gonna go corporate right now, and I just want a peace of mind where like there's processes and, you know, things that I can just follow, right?" And I think also, if we're, you know, inspiring people to work with us, yes, there's going to be people that are going to be like super proactive, and they want to like maybe be in that environment of excitement of like something new, maybe developing those processes, but also they're going to be A players that when they come to work, they're probably going to work better if all those processes are already in place. So it's something that, I encourage everybody listening to start paying attention to, right? Don't leave it to last minute like we did for a long time and go from there. And I think that will help at the bottom line, right? What has been, do you have like some tangible examples of like that customer journey? It was a mess. You guys came in, fixed it. And did it translate directly into revenue for the business, right? Do you have an example like that, a case study that you can share with people to maybe illustrate it?
Yeah, I mean, God, there's so many, but one of my favorites probably was working, and maybe this is partly to do with some of my background, is I did some work last year, maybe the year before, with a company, an events company. They do weddings and things. Set up and stuff like that, and so just a couple of girls that had started out just before COVID. Obviously, COVID happened, and then they grew exponentially after COVID because everybody's back and wants weddings and all of the rest of it. And so they were in that process that I very much described to you. Like, they were very highly sought after, but nobody could get hold of them. Like, because they had no processes or anything in place, and it's two sisters, and so one of them thinks the others picked up the messages and responded to clients, and they're not invoicing, and they're not, and everything's just crazy. And so eventually I went in and put just some simple systems in place. It wasn't anything fancy, CRM, auto responses, just a few bits and pieces, proper proposals, and just streamlined the website a little bit. Nothing major. To me, it was nothing major.
Yeah.
And then I went to one of the event shows to show them how they can use all of these online forms and things, so they're not taking down details manually at wedding fairs anymore and then going home and putting them on a desk and losing them. Like, they're following up with the clients straight away.
Yeah.
The leads. And I had a review with them probably about 8 weeks ago now, actually. And I think their business is, I think we worked out it was about 30%.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
difference.
Huge.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay. I'm very inspired.
And some of that, and just to clarify, some that was two prongs. Some of that is an increase in clients because their reputation has improved because they're now getting back to people and responding. And the other part of that, because this was very much built into the automations and the systems that were in place, the following up on invoices and making sure they're getting paid. Where they were missing it before.
Yeah, 100%. So that's on my wheelhouse. That's my homework. I look at Fonzie because he's like, hey, can you talk to this person? Now, this will be probably like very tactical and also like maybe, what a lot of people like. You mentioned tools at the beginning of your talk, right? You're like, people are starting investing and paying all these tools and things and connecting and, zapping here and there. And what do you recommend? Like, what's for context, right now we're using Go High Level, right? In our agency, and the studio is a Frankenstein of applications that, our previous owner left us. So I want to move everything to one platform if possible. What are some things that you recommend? Minimal friction to execute. Like, what do you work with? Like, what are some of the things that you help them?
There's very few things I don't work with because I cover everything from entrepreneurship to corporate business.
Yeah.
And I don't do everything myself. Some of it I outsource. Some of it I have a team that works with it, especially, and then I have the bits that I specialize in myself. So small business, I use Dubsado a lot. That's a really great, inexpensive platform.
What's it called?
Dubsado.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I use that quite a lot for small business. It's a really great one, all-in-one business solutions management tool. Go High Level I use a lot. That probably will be where I point you, in all honesty, because there's so many things you can do with it, and the way you can personalize it and white label it and all of the rest of it. Like, it's, and the few bits that it doesn't do, you usually can use this app somewhere to sort it out. So
absolutely.
And then I use Monday.com, I use HubSpot, I use Salesforce.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So
Microsoft, Power BI, you name it.
So if you're listening and you need some help and support here, please go scroll down and click on Natalie's link right there, connect with her, and have that conversation with her. And, you know, we've, on our side, I think like when we were in Orange Theory, they developed their own CRM, right? And then we had Ring Central for like text messaging and phones and all these like things that you don't even think about, right? Like, oh, I'm just communicating through DMs, right? And then there's Slack and all these things. So
bots, all of the rest of it. Yeah, there's Slack, there's bots, there's so many chat bots now, so many AI tools out there. I'm very lucky because through I'm part of Steve Stim's the distillery.
Yeah.
So I know Manju, and he's one of the best when it comes to AI. And so, you know, for any of my businesses that need that kind of thing, I can point them in his direction. Like, it's
cool,
you know. So yeah.
Makes sense.
So
power of relationships too. Very important.
Okay, I think like this is probably my last question. I don't know if Francie has something else, but let's talk budget on these things, right? Because obviously, let's say if we go into a tool or like hiring somebody, like, do you have a number or a percentage of, you know, a monthly budget that a small business, you know, let's say a solopreneur, maybe somebody with a few employees, right, have to keep accountable to be able to build this journey, right? Like when I was thinking budget back in the day, customer journey was not even an option there. I was like marketing or like paying ourselves or like the, you know, whatever comes expense, you know, coffee, right? But then customer journey is like not even in the list, right? It's like, so do you recommend people to kind of set something apart to invest in these systems and these processes, right? What does that look like for people to start maybe thinking about, you know, implementing this?
It can look like anything. I mean, it depends where you are in your business as to how much money you've got to invest, because you can spend anything from $39 a month straight through to, you know, 50, 60,000 pounds. It just depends where you are in business. If you're really new to business and you've got no money, I would start with a set of Post-its and a pen, and map out your customer journey. I always call it the paper test. You put in a piece of paper through your process and working out where it gets stuck. And when you think you've got it right and you think this is a perfect process, put it out there. Go and speak to your friends and your family or, you know, your potential customers and say, what do you think of this? Would this work as a process for you? Is there anything that would really piss you off? Like, is there anything I can do better? Said feedback's a gift. Because, you know, the problem with the customer journey when you're doing it for yourself within your own business is that you're designing the perfect service for you. But I think we were talking about, I can't remember if we were talking about it before the podcast started actually, but a perspective, right? You know, like the perfect customer journey for me isn't necessarily the perfect customer journey for you.
Absolutely. And
so you need to get that feedback to work out what's working and what isn't all the time, consistently. So if you're starting out and you've got no money, start there. If you've got a bit of money to spend, then a CRM, like you said, you can do that for as little as $39 a month. And again, Dubsado, not to be put, I'm hoping the plug will, I'm not an affiliate, I promise. Their training suite is amazing. So, you know, if you've got the time to train yourself, it's $39 a month and you can do it that way. Or you can come to something like a half-day customer journey workshop, which will cost you around $500 to $700.
Cool.
And then the cost goes on from there. It just depends how much you want to spend and where you are in your business.
I love it. I think it's something that's super important.
Education and action.
Yeah. I think in the long run, it's one of those things that, you know, you invest maybe at the front, but it's going to help you keep a lot of more money of that effort that, you know, the content creators are putting up front to acquire those customers.
I mean, just think about it. If you have a customer that just spends $1,000 with you and they usually stay 6 months with you, if you increase their lifetime value, you know, by 2 months, right, by 30%, right, 2 months, you're making an extra $2,000 every single client that comes in. You know, I'm sure doing one of Natalie's workshops, right? Like, it's gonna pay off. You know, with one more client that extends their lifetime for, again, 30%. Let's say they only extend it for one more month. Like, you're already making that money back. It's a no-brainer.
I love it. Go ahead, sorry, Natalie.
No, I was just going to say it's incredible. It's incredible the difference that it makes just paying that attention to certain bits and pieces within your customer journey.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot.
Absolutely. As we wrap up on our side, obviously with content, there's something that I think we feel very proud, which is, our podcast process with our guests. We try to bring at least 2 or 3 a week. And a lot of people ask us, like, how do we do it? And I think my subconscious, when we started building this thing, it was almost like, let's create a journey for our guests, right? So now we're working on the after interview part. Like, how do we, we're notifying them that the episode goes out. We're notifying that the content goes out. We're tagging them out there, right? Especially with collaboration, because our message is like that relationship that we build with the people that come to the show are opportunities down the road, whatever, right? And for us, it has meant like customers, referrals, speaking engagements, like friends, right? Like all these amazing. Now we can go see a Manchester United game over there, and when they crush Arsenal. But there's a lot of advantages, right? So I encourage every single person, not only on your business, obviously, yes, on your business, like that's a given, but also if you're collaborating with somebody on the content, don't miss on that content journey with that person, because it will translate into the business as well.
I mean, me putting the points together here is I wrote here, customer journey builds advocacy and retention, right? But it also builds rapport in a way, right? And for a process like the podcast, right, which is more like a guest journey, building rapport is going to help you with getting the guest to refer you other potential people that you can bring onto the podcast, relationships that you can develop further into opportunities, right? Or relationships that you can further develop into referrals, right? So there is so much upside in having a good guest experience, right? That guest journey that you can guide them on.
But building rapport isn't just like from your perspective when you're talking about a guest journey on a podcast. Building rapport just isn't just important for those things. It's important because for the conversation that you're having on the podcast. If you want to have a conversation that flows and that's interesting, then you need the person that you're talking to be comfortable.
Yep.
And that's done by building rapport, and that's part of your customer journey.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's why usually when people talk to my brother, they're like all awkward, but when they send the comments to me, it's like we're like homies, we've been friends forever.
Natalie, we're besties. We've been texting, for a month or so trying to get this on. So just saying, fun to get away. No, I'm kidding.
I love it. So let's wrap it up with like a quick fire guest journey here. You can brainstorm with us. I'm gonna put out there a little bit of a dream that we'd had, or maybe my dream that I have with Content is Profit, which, since the beginning, we've called it a show, not a podcast. We call it a show because, we got the little intro, the banter going on. But we've thought about putting some sort of games, kind of like a talk show, right? It's like, let's have some sort of games in here, create this whole experience. We've gone into, let's put these boxes together. When we book the guest, send them the box, and then they have to open it live. And, they have like a wheel. I don't know, a whole bunch of things that, again, this is all in our imagination. But I'm curious, based on that information, this can be quick fire. It can take you like a minute. Just be like, all right, these are some cool ideas you can potentially do. What would be a cool guest journey?
Oh, God, you're asking me something okay, so I'm going to throw this back at you guys. So
all right.
To me, it sounds amazing. Like, I'd love that because it's something different. But why? What is the why?
All right. First of all, because a lot of the podcasts, sure, they're audio, but obviously they're going on there's a lot of visuals now with the videos going on YouTube and stuff like that. But most of them are pretty boring, especially interview-based podcasts. It's like, dude, they're so boring. Same information if you go from one guest to from one guest on different shows and you're listening to their interviews. It's like, I'm getting the same exact thing. Like, it's just the same exact conversation across multiple different platforms. So for us, it's like, how do we make it fun? And the other side of it is, we love making friends. We love building relationships. The business that we have today has been thanks to the relationships we have built on the podcast. So we're like, we want to put more intention into these relationships, right? Not only provide value to the listener, but have fun and build great friendships with the people that come to the show.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So then my next question would be, where do most people listen to your podcast? Do they view it on YouTube or do they listen to it in the car?
Audio is the main platform, and then video has been growing.
Okay. So then you need to find a game then, don't you, that people can still enjoy via audio?
Correct.
Because you don't want to switch them off.
Correct. We do a lot of clips too, right? Obviously, that's part of how we promote the podcast. We grab a lot of clips. So I think there's a marketable aspect in there where people, maybe come across the clips and they're different than the regular podcast, half screen one person, the other screen one person talking. But now you have, the wheel of death spinning with challenges like eat the spicy sauce that's on the box we send you, right? Like, a whole bunch of things like that, I think would be a little bit marketable too.
We might have to launch a new show
for that.
To do this.
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's a whole different show.
Yeah.
I think you've got it. I think it sounds like a really good idea. I think just be mindful of who you're doing it for. Be mindful of where your guests are listening. And just make sure that you're doing it for your end user and not necessarily just for the person you're interviewing on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, having both people in mind in there.
Yeah.
Don't get carried away.
You got carried away there.
I know. I'm so excited. I just love that idea. I think it's such a unique thing. I believe operationally.
It might be what sells you to.
Yeah, I think operationally, yes, it would be very challenging, right, to pull it off. Like, imagine we do 3 interviews a week, right? That's a lot. Mm-hmm. Imagine getting all these boxes, putting together, shipping them. Like, there's going to be definitely...
There's companies that do that.
I know, but there's going to be a cost to that. All these things. Like, we actually interview the guy that puts the boxes together. Coincidence much? Maybe we can talk to him. But operationally would be definitely a challenge. But I think it would be so different and so fun to do something like that. But yeah, I think we're on the good path.
Maybe once a month.
What is it?
Said, maybe once a month. Maybe it doesn't have to be
every
every
special
guest.
episode.
Maybe like a wild card. Yeah.
We just pick a random out of the
podcast.
Yeah. Oh, we pick it out of the bag of Continuous Profit Hall of Famers.
Yeah, that could be a good idea.
Audience favorites, and then
we can start by one. That's the thing. That's the other problem. We like to just go off the hook with every idea we got. We're like, nah, we're starting at 100. Today at the coffee shop, my brother mentioned about a new idea. He's like, we've talked about it before, about having a hot dog stand, right? And it's called Hot Doggies. And it's like we put a show. It's like an entertaining show while we're making hot dogs and things like that. Are you familiar
with the Savannah Bananas by any chance? Okay. It will be the Savannah Bananas of the hot dog stand world. Just saying. That was my pitch.
Yeah, pretty much, right? So
and
today
we'll have different dog hats and different shirts, and the kid, can bark for a discount, and we have music, and we have a party going on.
Yeah, we're dreamers out here. That's the challenge, right? We're dreaming. So we're like, this whole experience is like, dude, first we need to make sure we know how to cook a hot dog.
I know how to cook a hot dog. Yeah. Anyways.
Especially living in the States, you'll get sued.
Yeah. But good tangent alert. I like
good
that
tangent
one.
alert. Anyways, I think this is a great place to stop the show. Now, is there anything else that you want to add before you continue with your amazing evening?
I don't think so. I think if nothing else, just remember to communicate and be authentic, which you've got it. You're fine.
I love it. We accomplished our mission. The goal of the podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. Let's go.
Hey. All right, Fonzie, is there anything else you want to add?
Natalie, thank you so much. I feel illuminated. I don't know if that's even the right word, right? But enlightened, that's the word. I feel enlightened about customer journeys. And my mind is running wild, right? Like, as you were talking, I was literally thinking about our own process. And I'm like, we got some holes in here. We recently... brought a new customer in, and as the process is going, I'm like, well, maybe we can definitely do a little bit better here and there. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
No worries, guys. Thank you.
Sweet. With that said, guys.
One last thing.
Wow, Fonzie.
One last thing. Come on, Arsenal.
Okay.
Come on, Arsenal.
Wow, real quick.
Yeah, real quick. Cut that up, man. Okay. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning to the Content Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at @TheSrushCo.
That is right. If Natalie here help you improve your customer journey and increase the lifetime value of your customers, please don't forget to share this episode. And of course, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.